I'd like to call this Council and Budget Committee meeting to order. Mr. Clerk, the roll call, please.
Your Worship, Councillor Dubineau is absent this evening and sends his regrets. All other members of Council are present.
There are no announcements. There's no addendum this evening. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? There being none, then I'm pleased to hand the chair over to Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. And we are lucky to have Jonathan Jansen with us tonight, Director of Corporate Services, to walk us through the first part of our budget. Jonathan, when you're set.
As you'll see on the opening page here, we do have a report to accompany tonight, CBC 01 2026. That is on the town's agenda page, along with all of the attachments, as well as the package that we'll be looking at later with all of the different capital worksheets that detail all of the different needs and support and impacts of all the different capital projects. We did have our budget planning report come forward to council on October 6th to forecast some of the items we'll be looking at. As well, we are, and I'll show on a slide later, there is some additional information for the budget on our town's Let's Talk Fort Erie page. So as you're following along, for those of you that are remote or otherwise, there's information there as well that we'll be building throughout the budget this year. The capital budget, it's a really good moment to kick off because it does in many ways consider all the different needs and wants of the city and the way we deliver services to our citizens and to others. I do like how we begin many of our meetings in talking about being stewards of all that's been entrusted to us. So this is a large moment for that, to be stewarding the funds that we receive from taxpayers and other sources, to be putting it to good use for assets that have a large impact on our everyday. Last year I opened with talking about the different ways from waking up to going to bed that municipal services are in everyone's day-to-day life. They're there to help our whole community thrive and prosper, and that is our aim ultimately with what we bring forward with our capital budget. So this is a bit of an overview of what we'll be looking at tonight. Format very similar to previous years. We will go through the presentation, have presentation questions following item number 5, and then go into the capital budget worksheet review. That's item 5 in the electronic agenda on the town's website. We'll scroll through those as we go through each one and look to responding to any questions or concerns with each of those. Following that, we'll take a look at the report itself, consider any comments or questions with that, as well as any potential amendments, and then go from there. Of course, this year we are following a bit of a different framework. The report does speak to the changes that we're trying to adapt to and incorporate that the province gave us through the Strong Mayor Powers legislation. However, I think in working with the mayor, you'll find that much of what we do tonight and throughout this whole process feels much like everything we've done in previous years. And this is just a little collection of some of the photos that you'll see in some of the various capital worksheets, just to give us a sense of scope and some of the areas we'll be dealing with tonight. Those are available later as we go through each one, but it goes to show, everything from parks to our water and wastewater systems to our fleet and our fire and emergency delivery, roads and fleet, our facilities, so many different areas that this is really impacting tonight. So, we're in year 4, or the final budget of this term of council, so we are guided in a few different ways, and council's familiar with the ways that your corporate strategic plan does guide our capital budget process. Just itemizing a few things there that we are coordinating with the budget as well, with really trying to ensure we have a program that's prioritized and it's looking at all the different combining factors, leveraging grants and being prepared for grants, minimizing costs over the life of our assets, providing modern and enhanced services, in areas like that. And then policy guidance, we have a number of important policies that council's approved that are the foundation as well to our whole budget program, including the budget policy itself. We have reserve policies, an asset management policy, and so on. Again, a bit more of an overview of the year-round process this is, and just on that note, I would want to really thank many staff that put their time and effort into bringing this budget forward to where it is tonight. And it is a year-round process where you see reports coming back for approval if there's issues or if it's in excess of different procurement levels, and we're reporting on it. Most recently, we brought forward just earlier this month, report CS10 2025. There's a hyperlink there for if you want to dive into that. But that program or that report closed 77 existing projects that had a budget of $27 million. It returned $3.6 million from those projects back into reserve, so very timely with considering the capital budget tonight. Those are all the projects in Appendix 1 to that. And then it also, in Appendix 2, that report gives important status updates on the other projects that are not ready to close but are remaining open and active at this point. Those cumulatively have an outstanding budget of $87 million. And again, throughout the year, you will see changes and amendments come forward. We've seen many more in the last few years. With inflation having a larger impacts, of course, that has tamed and reduced an impact a bit in the last year. But this last year, it may also be emerging or new or strategic capital item approvals, and that was a total of $2.7 million in this last year. Just to give a bit of scale, we do have about $500 million in cost value of our assets that have over $2 billion in replacement value. That's information that is not only calculated and audited with our financial statements, but we're working on regularly with our citywide asset management program. It's an impact for our insurance program. It impacts some of the grants and eligibility we have through the province and others as well. And it just linked there as well to the asset management plan that came forward just over a year ago in July of 2024 with some of the goals and impacts there. On the financial update side for that, just at the bottom of the screen here, you can see that currently with both our levy and wastewater or rate budgets, we're contributing $16 million a year to the program. So that's less than the total average spend for our capital program, but there are other sources, of course, as well that we'll talk about later. Again, just some context really for master plans. More recently, we did have the Parks and Open Space Master Plan, but official plans, we do condition assessments with road and storm. We've looked at software and our system reviews for modernization, biannual bridge assessments. So lots of ongoing work that is informing what's coming before you tonight. The DC study, of course, again, just provides important revenue sources to help assign the cost of growth to non-taxpayers, and then just some other comments there too, as well as other requirements. This is taken from our asset management plan, just a sense of what all the different categories are for our asset management plan. And this is just an overview of some of the ways we would have back in July of 2024 commented on the condition of our assets. You can see their overall average condition being fair with mixed results across those categories and different size of each different area of cost. The asset management plan, the life cycle management strategy, again, just goes to show this is a summary from some of those documents where we have goals to again, manage risk at the lowest life cycle cost would be a key part of how we're considering the budget tonight. So for 2026, it's a slight decrease from last year, but it is 61 projects totaling $23.8 million across those categories for this year. As usual, the largest area being our road program that also includes bridges and sidewalks at $9.8 million or just over 40%. And of that, our asset management plan deals and focuses on our existing assets. Of course, growth assets have alternate funding typically, but for our existing assets, this is a summary of some of the larger programs. You'll see when we go through the capital worksheets later that the road resurfacing program has been elevated a bit this year at $2.8 million. That's due to some additional OSIF, or Ontario Community Infrastructure Funds, that were not needed for a trenchless repair program in the past, so that's enabled that to be higher than normal. And you can see some of the other larger items that would be the top four in the existing asset program. And then similarly with growth, we have two projects in the Black Creek Roads area for upgrades at just over $1.3 million, and then a couple other programs where these would relate primarily to growth areas and new assets. So when you look at the 10 years, it's actually the 1 year plus 10, so 11-year total program. The average annual capital program is $35.3 million. The town budgets in today's dollars, so every year as we go forward, we are adjusting in our expectations and the cost for those. But you can see definitely some larger and smaller years. Some of the two larger years, like 2030 and 33, are due to some larger projects, particularly on the growth side with pump stations. And then the financing, we're fortunate to have a very reliable, the $16 million amount I mentioned earlier is the 59% town reserves. That's because there's another component that falls down as part of the other area, but the reserves being used by this budget are $14 million, or just about 60%. So of that $14 million, we are carrying balances year to year, and obviously based on that program fluctuating from year to year, that balance will be higher or lower. But we're coming into 2026 with a forecasted capital reserve balance of approximately $32 million. And again, there's those contributions annually from both the levy and the rate budgets. And at this point, we do wait until we have the two operating budgets that come forward, both on December 3rd and January 28th, to approve any other type of increases to that $16 million, knowing that there are pressures, and in any given year, we may want to throttle or change our approach with that. And on that, just know we do have a financial strategy that is in the works right now for our asset management that'll look at a few different scenarios that we'll be working together to bring forward in the next month or two. This is a graph that shows, based on that asset management plan, how at one point, based on the information available at that point, and that is a major comment, because information, especially as we do condition assessments, especially in our storm system, we're finding it reveals gaps that are larger than we would have hoped or imagined in some cases. So you can see at the top line there the gap widening over the last few years, with more information, with knowing what the program spend and the real need for a sustained life cycle approach to our capital would be. And there's a low and a high based on some of the preliminary information we had from the asset management plan. And then you can see, although it's quite compressed due to the other scale, but some of the giving or the contributions by different type of budget, the levy and the water and wastewater. And here over the following years are the capital reserve balances. Again, quite a bit of variation. We do see here the parkland with the forecasted program. It has both levy contributions and external developer contributions. And we do find in the latter years the program that was part of the forecast is creating some deficits there. We do at times find that we don't bring, the last 5 years of our program tend to be less reliable and a little bit more of an estimate, and difficult to project what needs will be coming forward in the last half of that program. On the debt side, we do have two two debentures that are coming or expired in 2025, that with the 2026 budget, we do have a policy that says those should be then repurposed into our capital needs. So there's the impact of those two, both for the Ridge Road and Crescent Park projects. So we have a year-end balance for this year of debt of $8.1 million, principal payments of $950,000 and interest of $329,000, both being quite modest in terms of what our annual repayment limits would be. I believe that information is on the next slide. And just a note there at the bottom, we did remove $2 million from our Point Abino Road South Reinstatement Project due to the available funding we did have for that and the scale of the project. And so here are the proposed items. Each of these three actually were previously forecasted last year. 6 Mile Creek, that project, we've described it more as a placeholder where we are trying to leverage that project and design that project if and when we were to receive some additional funding. So the design and nature of that project is not well known at this point. And then the fire station and the Hershey Cemetery Phase 1 are two other projects that were identified for debt financing. And here you can see that ARL, or annual repayment limit, being very low. We're under 2%. And for this year and next year, again, just over or under 2%, which is well below the 25% limit that the province has instituted. We do say that debt is a good tool to consider and use in the mix of all of our funding, and that'll be a part of the discussion as well with our financial strategy coming forward to council. You can see the debt year-end balances that are forecasted based on those projects we noted. And then some of the external funding, these have not changed too much. The Canada Community Building Fund, previously the federal gas tax program, has funding of $1.8 million that we're receiving in 2020, being used for the program in 2026. We're receiving $1 million. And again, there's multi-year impacts of the funding we will have built up in reserve and can apply in any given year. And for this year, it's $1.6 million for our bridge program and $200,000 for sidewalks. DCs, this is an increasing reliance in an environment we're in with decreasing development activity, subject to a lot of concern. Development charges were not included in the graph for the forecast, but they certainly are showing large deficits with the current level of funding and even some of our forecasted funding based on some of the large projects on the horizon, some of which would result also in grants to industrial properties and factors like that. So that $4.3 million, 18%, is applied across 19 projects, including the Black Creek Road upgrades. And then we finally there have $3.6 million for grants, or 15%, most of which is for or funded from the OSIF program, again, for 3 different projects, the largest being that road resurfacing program, or RSRF 26. AMP, I think, has been at the top of the list for risks for the last number of years, where that report did suggest $12 to $29 million in gaps, depending on what the town's levels of service are and what we can do to address and refine our levels of service. Inflation, again, has come down, but we're still in many areas catching up and with our budgets of the impacts that we've seen over the last few years. Growth demands, we are on the grant side trying to position a lot of the program to be ready for grants that may come through the provincial government for housing enabling in particular. But a lot of the demands on the town, and to the extent that growth doesn't fund or growth doesn't pay for growth, that places an additional burden on the town. And even some of the new assets we're putting forward, they do have operating impacts. So when we're adding parks, when we're adding different capital programs, that if it's a new vehicle or things like that, we are at this point with the capital budget also confirming what the impacts to our operating budgets are to, for a park to have, grass cutting and labor for garbage and for different amenities and labor costs for those. We did talk a little bit already about the development charges and the OSIF. Unfortunately, with OSIF, the funding is not reliable by the province. They've done very little to allow us to know that it is going to be even beyond the, I think, 2027 was the last year we had confirmation for that the program would continue to, so there's some risk there as well. And then opportunities, as mentioned, we're really keen on from the very top level with our CAO, doing whatever we can to advocate for additional funding, particularly with the housing enabling being a large program in the province and other applications for funding. And just some examples that you would have seen in some recent years for opportunities that help our budget, even to the bottom there with communications, to enhance our engagement and clarity to the community on what our assets are doing and how they're supporting the community. So some of the key messages to summarize it in your Appendix 1, it is a total capital budget of $23,795,300. The total 11-year horizon is spending of $388 million. We've shown how the asset management plan, the asset gap in funding is widening due to a number of factors. The budget tonight is structured with deemed adoption based on the province's rules in accordance with what we laid out in report CS08 and with some of the appendixes there. So the capital budget itself then this year for the first time would not require a bylaw. The operating impacts, as noted earlier, and because of some of the changes to the structure of how the budget is approved, there was not the need, for preliminary and general distinctions that we've made in the past that created two separate bylaws, so that's been removed for this year. The next steps, we do have our water and wastewater budget and the user fees coming forward on December 3rd. The budgets themselves don't require bylaws, but the rates for them and the charges do require bylaws. And then the January general levy budget as well. As noted earlier, we do have a Let's Talk page as well for the budget, so there's a link there for anyone that would wish to see some of the key components of the budget, some key dates, and we'll be updating that as more information is available and approved. Some videos that are helpful and the primary contacts as well. This presentation is also available on that page. So at this point, I'll turn it back to Councillor Flagg as chair. If there's any presentation questions, and then following that, we would then go through the individual capital worksheets, again, item 5 in the e-agenda.
Thank you, Jonathan. Are there questions as it relates directly to this presentation? Yes, Councillor Noyes.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Flake. Thank you, Jonathan, for all your hard work over the years. It can't be easy. You mentioned, you commented on it, the federal budget and the provincial and everything else. We've been somewhat successful over the years, and we're hoping that will continue. Considering that the new federal budget was just dropped this past week and approved this past week, and it seems to have a lot of perks, I will use the word perks, or incentives, I guess is a better word, for infrastructure projects and things like that are related to roads, and well, I guess that's all infrastructure. Was this at all factored into it, like the new, like the $78 million deficit or whatever, billion, whatever it was?
Through the chair, I'm not aware at this stage, and I am a little bit behind on digesting some of that, but of any programs that would be reliable, sustainable funding that at this stage would be incorporated into the budget. We regularly meet with senior staff as a grants oversight team to evaluate any programs, particularly any application-based program that we should be applying for, We just even document ones that we don't apply for, so we're clear on looking back and looking forward. Are there any stones we haven't turned over to see what we can do to maximize that funding? But no, I'm not aware of any that at this point would impact our capital program.
I'm having heard that, if I can continue, but there may be, like,
Yes.
there may be. I know it's, like I said, it just came down, and there seems to be a lot more money being put towards infrastructure projects, and I'll just use your term, stones. Hopefully there's some more stones that we can pick up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Noyes, anything else? Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation, Jonathan. Just a couple of questions. Maybe you could move to slide 20. So of those projects, the fire station number 3, that would be premised on a new build, acquisition of property, or does that include the potential for collaboration with the current owners of Station 3?
Yeah, for that, I would direct you to talk to Chief Schmidt. I'm not aware what stage of those kinds of conversations have been had, or to what extent. I can't recall at this point. It may have been in fire master plan discussions, but I'm sure that would be, that is a need, as currently right now, the Station 3 is not owned by the town.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
So that number at this stage of the game is still fuzzy. Second item or the third item there, the Hershey Cemetery Phase 1. Do these long-term plans factor in the capacity at Greenwood or McAfee or any other public cemeteries owned by the town?
Through you to the chair, I would have to refer to Infrastructure Services to know what the more recent cemetery plans would be in that regard. Information on that, our CAO may have some more information.
Okay, because I'd be interested in, I think we need to know whether there are opportunities to expend less money and still achieve the same result. And finally, if I might, could you go to slide 23?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. In the future, is it possible for council to get these presentations in advance of the council meeting?
Yes, it's on our town website, but we could.
But it's not on
Advance
our
that.
eScribe, and we
No, that's
typically
right,
look at
yes.
eScribe, so perhaps in the
Yeah, and it was an earlier posting this year with the new Strong Mayor Power 10-day rule, so it wasn't available when it initially went up, but I think we have latitude to be updating the eScribe
We're not
earlier.
really reading the 10-day
Yeah.
rules on strong mayors. So with respect to this, the infrastructure gap, that is affected by all of these new projects that we have that are being put into place. So all the new playgrounds that we build have long-term maintenance costs, which become part of the asset management plan financing strategy, do they not?
So it exasperates the asset management plan, but truly the asset management plan itself is for our existing assets.
I know that, but
Right.
once a planned
Yes.
project becomes an existing project, it becomes part of the financing costs.
That's right. And that's why we do have a policy to say if a new asset is coming on, we will fund the amortization of it so that we're capturing, and it's not, it is impacting our gap, but it's not at least impacting it too greatly. It's an additional burden for any of our tax or ratepayers, but if we're bringing on $1 million asset that has a 10-year life, then we're asking council to immediately fund $100,000 a year contribution to that, so that gap doesn't go up by another $100,000 per year.
And the follow-up to, if I might, Chair, the follow-up to Councillor Noy's question about potential federal funding, any funding that we would get that would relate to a project that we're going to build, we simply substitute the funding and then put what we would have spent into the reserve to assist us with the long-term asset management obligations.
Yes, that can be the case. Sometimes it does expand the scope or accelerate programs that also are available, but yeah, we do aim to, depending on the guidelines of a program, it will often be a substitution of funding, yes.
I think my point is, there's really no shortage of infrastructure projects that we could utilize federal or provincial funding for.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, thank you, Mr. Jansen. And so we'll go now to capital budget package. Is that correct, Jonathan?
That's
We're
right,
working ahead?
yeah.
All right, and we'll go through these as we have in the past independently. And I will ask if there's any questions on each individual one, and if there are none, we will just continue through. I'm going to use the table of contents as my guide. So we'll start with, Jonathan, you're going to get it, bring it up there. Great. Anyone has any jokes they want to tell what we're doing?
Can read up on the news while we wait.
I was just trying to figure how you were doing that without using your hands.
You go to our e-scribe page, it's the one that you saw before. Okay.
All right.
This is where we get into, the 61 projects beginning on page 8 of the PDF package with the contact center as a service software program or capital project.
Okay, questions? Good. IT hardware? Good. Phone replacement? Okay. Corporate-wide core infrastructure? I think we're good there too, Jonathan. Thank you. Town Hall Leisureplex access control improvements. Good. Wide area network improvements. None. All right. Park accessibility improvements. So, what's that? Yeah. On this one?
No, actually, the wide area network improvement, oh, that's the one we are on. I'm just wondering a clarification. In the second paragraph, it said servicing for each of these 2 locations is estimated to cost $10,000. So that's $10,000 each? Or $10,000 for both?
I believe that's referring to the ongoing costs for each of those 2 locations, yes, not the capital.
Okay, but again, is it 10,000 for each to be serviced or 10,000 collectively?
I believe it was 10,000 together, if I can remember correctly, but I can get back to you on that one.
Thank you.
Anything else, Councilor Nice?
No, that's it
Good,
for that one.
thank you. Park accessibility improvements? Yep, go.
Again, just a question here. Where it's referring to, I read it. It was referring to the accessibility plan. Recommendations identified in the plan include the provision of accessible picnic tables, benches, pathways, repairs to improve access to site amenities and facilities. It also recommended rubberized surfaces for playgrounds. And I'd like that recognized in there. It was one of the recommendations.
I'm not sure I followed that. I'm sorry, Councilor Nice.
Okay, it's talking about the park accessibility improvements. and it's talking about what the recommendations from the Accessibility Committee plan, the multi-year accessibility plan, and it has a number of them listed, but it did not include, but the recommendations did include in the plan rubberized surfaces for the playgrounds, and that's not listed in here. And the reason I'm bringing it up here is because I know rubberized surfaces is, the cost is significantly, like, it adds a cost to the playgrounds if we start going for rubberized surfaces, but I think it needs to be recognized in here so that when staff is looking at new parks and new playgrounds and stuff, that they realize that that is part of the recommendation.
Elizabeth, yep, go. You respond?
Through the chair to Councillor Noyes, yes, that is in the accessibility multi-year plan for the community parks. However, when it comes to rubberized surfacing, that usually is, the cost of that is usually comparable or equal or more to the cost of the playground. So, for example, for this budget where it is 50,000 in a playground, let's just say is 150,000, usually the rubberized surfacing is also around 150,000. So we would incorporate that cost with the playground replacement. It wouldn't be particularly in the accessibility improvement budget because this would be for other things, as this budget would not be able to accommodate for that replacement. We would take that into consideration when doing the replacement of the full structure.
Yeah, follow up.
Thank you thank you for that explanation, but again, one of the recommendations was for rubberized surfaces in new playgrounds, or for, I guess, for when we're redoing a playground. So leaving it out of here doesn't change the fact that that was a recommendation, regardless of I know the cost is substantially more. That's not the point.
So
Make sure that's it's part of the recommendation. I don't want it left out.
through the chair to Councillor Noyes, so this is the accessibility budget for 2026. In the accessibility multi-year plan, that's for community parks. We do not have any current community park replacement in the budget for 2026. So in retrospect, since there are no community playgrounds that need a replacement of rubberized surfacing or added rubberized surfacing, that's not included in this year's accessibility budget.
Again, it's still a recommendation. Whether we build a new park or not, we may not be having any more benches or a new pathway to a park. It still should be, I don't want it lost. I want it included in the narrative.
If what I'm hearing, it won't be lost if we construct a new park. These,
If it's a community park.
if it's a community park.
That is
Correct.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Crystal Beach East Neighborhood Park. Good, Jonathan. Sorry, that went down a little further than I can read it. Thank you. Neighborhood park enhancements. All right. Outdoor adult fitness equipment. Ridgeway Lions Park court replacement. You have a question on that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Lewis?
Thank you. I know, oh, sorry, wrong park. Thank
All right, moving on. Ridgeway Shores Park Development, Your Worship.
Yeah, I actually like that name, Ridgeway Shores. I know you've been looking at Thunder Bay Park, but I like that name. But I just want to ask the treasurer about the parks. So this budget provides for 1.6 million in parks, but in 2027, it's 2.1 million, and 28, 4.5 million, 29, 1.5 million, 30, 1.2 million, 31, 2.1 million. So a fair investment. Much of those monies come from development charges, which the provincial government looks like it's trying to reduce our ability to generate funds for parks, despite the fact that they're also pushing a densification of housing agenda, which means people need a place to recreate. But in 2028, 2/3 of the money comes from the reserves. So each of these projects that is a new park has a new cost for A, operating each year going forward, and B, implications for the asset management plan. So, and there are other assets that need to be addressed. Roads, as an example, bridges, culverts. I think our storm drainage is the biggest asset cost going forward long term. So is there a balance that's being considered by staff with respect to how many parks we need, how quickly we need them, how they're tied in with other asset needs?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Definitely lots of discussions this year on the timing, the pace of these projects. A couple of them were deferred. We've included the design elements for a few of them that you'll see, but not the construction. At this point, the construction's forecast for 27, but again, it will be considered in a future or in the 2027 budget on the proper timing for that. You know, of course, I would refer to, again, our Parks and Open Space Master Plan. That should be the guiding document for what the town's standards and expectations are for these projects. You're very correct in noting just that they are adding to our asset management gaps, especially when DC and parkland revenues are not keeping up with the costs. I also flag for this and even the alternative in Appendix 3 with another park that was requested, large annual operating impacts. So in the case of Ridgeway Shores Park Development, you know, when we look at the cost of these parks, and again, here's the amortization is the largest one where we say, okay, if we're accepting responsibility for building and servicing this park, it has certainly, you know, about $18,000 to $20,000 in annual costs for a lot of these items. And then as well, just the ultimate responsibility for the long-term replacement. So that's that $54,000 a year with some of these replacements where a park, you know, in some of our guidance documents as well, like some of these parks have lives of 20 years, right? So and they're being reconsidered at earlier points. So that's another large impact as well, is that it's also adding to our annual operating costs as well.
So that's a nice segue into the comment that was made during your presentation about sometime in the early 20s, the Parkland Reserve Fund is going to be in the negative. You've also indicated that at some point the DCs will be in the negative. So I'm wondering how, and B, why we would be creating assets that we, A, can't fund, and B, may or may not need.
I see the CAO has his hand up. If you're okay with deferring over there, Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Jonathan, and through the chair. I guess my comment around the Parks and Open Space Master Plan, when it was brought forward, was intended to be an aspirational document. So there are some good leading practices around what we would consider in terms of proximity of parks, distance from new neighborhoods and developments, the types of parks, what might be in the parks, and looking at other data around demographic changes and growth. And so those things are all very dynamic. And I would say the Parks and Open Space Master Plan, while it's an aspirational guiding document, the questions that the mayor's raised about affordability and the ability to carry forward that plan, we knew when the plan was brought forward that it doesn't have a funding strategy attached to it. And so reality testing some of the principles in there and some of the guiding principles that would normally be used, to the mayor's point, may not be affordable. And so we may be having to review and revisit some of the principles in there around levels of service and affordability to determine where, how, and how soon some of those parks may come online, the need to defer some of them for other sources of revenue or grants to help supplement some of the financial strategy with that. And so those are all considerations we would need to take into account year over year with our annual budget as we're looking at onboarding some of the new parks.
Thank you, Mr. McQueen. Anything to add, Mr. Jansen, to that?
Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, okay. Your worship.
I just think that I think we need to keep our eye on the ball. And we have a lot of parks in Fort Erie. We have some fantastic, beautiful parks. And I like parks. I know the residents like parks. I know that because of the intensification of housing, we have to have parks. But we do have a lot of parks. We have a lot of, we have a lot of natural spaces as well. And I just think we need to keep our eye on the ball that we've got this large asset management gap, some of which relates to parkland, but much of it relates to roads, bridges, culverts, storm sewers, what have you. So just a little anxious.
That's fair. Yes, Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor Flake. I thought I'd get in on the conversation. The problem with our Parks and Open Space Master Plan is that it does not use proximity of parks. It bases it on population. You have to have so many people to get A. You have to have so many people to get park, for this amenity, for that amenity. It does not look at the proximity of parks. It tells us where they exist. But when you're looking at the number of, like if you should get a new park here, you want 250 adults or something like that, or in case of splash pads, 750 children before you qualify for a splash pad. It bases it, their inspirational guidelines are based almost entirely on population. And they're using statistics that are the census that was done in 2021, which is terribly outdated when they did that park. So I just want to throw that in. It has nothing to do, I think we are correct, as we have done over the years, talk about proximity of parks to where the people are. And I think we should be continuing with that practice, not necessarily be counting heads.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on then. Schoolie Road Subdivision Neighborhood Park. Shagbark Nature Park improvements.
Just one question on this one. It mentions 40,000 for consultants reports, and I'm just wondering where that comes in line with some of the other park creation.
Mr. Jan, oh. The troops are coming behind you.
Through the chair to Councillor Lewis. So since this isn't a full park design, we would have an EIS to determine kind of where the paths should go. So we aren't putting exactly facilities in the park, like a playground. So therefore, things like having public consultation and those type of administration fees, along with the costs for the consultants to do, that would be basically omitted. And the scope of work would be a lot more limited, as these are naturally protected areas. So the amount of work that would have to be done for construction administration would also be a lot smaller. This project would also be grouped along with the other Empire Loyalist Park, so then that way they can be kind of managed as one project to be time and cost efficient. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Noyes?
Again, and I appreciate the comment, but you're spending $40,000 on consultants and $60,000 on construction, and we're talking about paths. We're not talking about bridges and roads. And this is not, and I mean this in the nicest way, this is not rocket science. I mean, if you're familiar with the area of Shagbark, it's not rocket science. We don't need somebody from Toronto or wherever to come and tell us where the trail should go. And I think sometimes we're way over relying on consultants because we don't want to we don't want to make the decision. We want to say, well, that person told us to do this. And I think we're quite capable of doing it ourselves.
Through the chair to Councillor Noyes, so part of this would include having an EIS. So this would be a 3-season study done. This was advised as part of the new requirements coming through our official plan and also our senior environmental staff. So as far as the consultant's fees, these are quite reasonable. And then when it comes to construction, since these are environmentally sensitive areas, we can't just go through in with a bulldozer. This has to be more sensitively done. Therefore, labor costs may be a bit higher.
Yep, Councillor Noyes.
Again, I'm not talking about bulldozing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about wherever possible, we should not, we should be looking at how much we can do in-house in regards to paths and stuff like, and where the sign should go and where the path should go. We know the park, we know this area. The consultants don't, and we have, it's basically like, and I mean this in a facetious way, is like, we give them our watch and then we ask them what time it is. And that's kind of the approach I'm seeing here. Thank you.
Your Worship.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify. You've indicated that part of the consulting work relates to some professional work. You said some assessments, environmental assessment work, that type of thing.
So the consultant fees would include basically the environmental studies, the geotechnical reports, any kind of construction drawings that would be required, and also the specifications, which is kind of like the legal documents that the contractors would have to abide to, along with usually the tender process. So this would help staff to be able to have time to also accomplish completing other projects.
So those things require some particular special training and education.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thunder Bay Waterfront Park. Good. United Empire Loyalist Park Nature Trails. Yep. Councillor Noyes.
Thank you. And this is just because okay, we know that there's going to be a development to the east of this, which is also going to connect to this park. There's with the new development off of Stevensville Road, there's also going to be a trail through that to kind of join these all together. I'm just wondering if we're a bit premature in regards to doing this, or we should kind of extend the environmental impact study to include what we're anticipating that will occur when the development happens. Actually, the trail can probably go even before the development, but I'm just wondering how this is going to fit. I don't want to have to come back in 2 years when the other trail, the other part of the trail becomes available, and they're all supposed to be connecting. That's just a comment. We should be thinking
Comment?
about that
Good.
with the EIS.
Okay. Bunker gear replacement. Good. Diesel exhaust extraction unit 5, unit station 5. Recruit PPE. Saws replacement. Refurbish the training tower burn building. Black Creek Road upgrade. Same thing, just a different space. Bellevue Boulevard water main replacement. Nope. Councillor Christensen.
Thank you, Chair. I have discussed this with Mr. Frost. It's not a question about the project. The project does go from Hibbard, south of Dominion, to Summit, north of Dominion. It's an infrastructure project that will replace the water mains. But in the process of that, it will also require road replacement because the access to the water main from each house will include road cuts. So there's going to be a major road refurbishment. I just want to, and we also have approved a townhouse development at the corner of Bellevue and Hazel, the northeast corner, that will result in major infrastructure, include road refurbishment. That leaves the space between Summit, going north to Hazel, which it's a road, it does not have a water main, so it is not included in this project for road refurbishment and resurfacing. And I'm just wanting to make a point that, and a request that in the overall road resurfacing plan that is also part of this budget, that it would make sense to consider renovating that part of, so between Summit and Hazel on Bellevue, actually trying as best as possible to make a contiguous project so that it's all done at the same time in the interest of efficiency and not having an ugly thing between two beauties, you know, a thorn between two roses. Thank you.
I think Mr. Lewis understands what you talk about with thorn between two roses, but yes, Councillor Lewis.
I guess I'm the thorn between the two roses, but I just wanted to say I agree with Councillor Christensen in terms of that stretch between Hazel. It's probably the worst section of the road, and if we are out there doing it for the cost of whatever that would be, I can't imagine it being too costly, but it is worth the drive for anyone who hasn't, and good luck going down it.
Okay. Mr. Frost is in the building, so I'm sure he's taking that under advisement. Nothing would have. East Main Street water main replacement. Good. Elm Street water main replacement, sanitary sewer, storm sewer replacement. Grandview Road. Orchard Avenue. Pettit Road South upgrade, Your Worship.
Yeah, I've had a chance to discuss this briefly with staff. I know that next year is the engineering work, and the following year it's planned for construction, but I do hope that when the design work is being done, there will be some consideration given to the flow of traffic, because as I think we all know that that's the main point of access and egress to the QEW from Crescent Park. And now with the new subdivisions that are going in on both sides of the road, with further potential for expansion north towards Birdie Street, there needs to be a recognition that this is a busy road and is going to need to be carefully designed to make sure that it meets the needs, because once it's reconstructed, it's going to be reconstructed in that state for many, many years to come. And I think we just need to be cautious about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Queensberry Road, King Street, Douglas Street. Sims Avenue. Yes, Councillor Noyes.
Thank you. I just like, there's been a long discussion on this over the, not the past year, but probably 3 years ago. And it's unfortunate that Councillor Dubineau isn't here today, because I know there was a lot of discussion about the residents not wanting the road. I think a lot of those, if I'm not mistaken, is this not the street that also, a lot of them are on septic, they're not on sewer, and they did not want this? But again, I'm just wondering, that was a few years ago, has the position changed on that? Yeah, it's unfortunate, Counselor, that he's not here, but I know there was a lot of discussion about that.
Your worship?
Yeah, I'm quite familiar with this. The residents want their road improved. They don't want the apartment building that's going to be constructed on Garrison Road. This would be a point of access. They really don't want that, but the reality is, in order to provide the service necessary for access and egress from the apartment complex and to provide the services that those people need, they're in the middle of the urban boundary. If they're not on septic service, they should be. So that's really what this is all about. There are currently about a half a dozen residents. This reconstruction will permit some development on the north side of Sims and will also improve the section. So I know there are some differing views with respect to this, but it really needs to be brought into the 21st century.
Yes, Councillor Noyes.
And I can't agree with the mayor more. I agree that this has to be going forward.
There we go.
This has to be going forward,
work
but
here is
I just
done.
remember the very tense discussions we had at the time. And also I can remember saying that there was a reason that they put that intersection there is because they were anticipating that that's where it was going to go. And also the residents did not want it, the apartment building that was planned exiting onto Sims. I said, wait a minute, that's why the intersection is there for that exact reason. So I'm not anti this. I'm just saying it's
Perfect. Town Line Road Sewer servicing. Yes, Councillor Noyes.
This goes along also with other capital projects that are down. And, okay, so I'm kind of, the last thing I heard about this was, this is like where the McDonald's is going, right? And okay. My last conversation about this was that we're not going to be doing this, that the McDonald's, that person who owns all that, is going to come up with an infiltration system and a holding tank, and it's going to be great, it's going to be big and beautiful, and et cetera, et cetera. That's the last I heard, that this was not going to happen, because the other option, which we had never really discussed, was now on the table, and we were waiting from the Ministry of Environment to see if we
I think
could do
Mr.
it.
Frost is ready to respond.
Yes, through you, Chair. There are two elements here. There's the long-term servicing strategy for the area, which is these three capital projects: the sewage pumping station, the gravity sewer, and the force main. The issue you're talking is on the private development side with the McDonald's or proposed McDonald's development. In order for that development to go through, there is a temporary solution here where we can work with them to permit an on-site storage or holding tank and a membrane bioreactor to help treat the water. That's an interim measure that will allow that development to proceed until such time we get the municipal servicing designed, approved, and constructed. So that is two separate issues. If we simply don't work with that development under this guise, this development will be delayed until we get this infrastructure constructed in 3 to 5 years, potentially pending council approval of future budgets.
Councillor Noyes.
Okay, that was not the last discussion that I had before. And we were all kind of saying, okay, that the cost, again, we're looking at the cost of almost $3 million in 2027, that the cost, again, there was 2 open houses on this. And it was, I think, before your time, and option A, option B, option C, it was public open, and there was many people attended, some pros, some against. This other option was never proposed in any of these scenarios, but one of the things was, in all the things, is that the town wasn't going to be picking up the majority of the cost. The developer was going to be picking up X amount of dollars. The Leisure Homes was going to be picking up X amount of dollars. So I don't see any of the, I don't see where the other people are contributing to this.
Mr. Frost?
Yes, through you, Chair. So there's two components. There is the development, and all of the cost for that private system is fronted by the developer to permit them to move forward today as opposed to in that 3 to 5 year time frame. The costs, what you see here, are purely for those three projects of the pump station, the gravity main, and the force main. The idea is we have to budget for the total value of the project. When we start to look at how that is funded, we still have to complete the environmental assessment, which is nearing completion, and then we have to go through the detailed design to which the cost apportionment will happen. So there is going to be a cost share with the proponents for those on there. I believe there's about 14 residential homes. There is several commercial properties, and there's Black Creek Leisure Homes, with which we will be entering into a cost share for this work. But we need to be able to fully fund the work in the event to approve it, and then the cost share comes back to replenish those reserves.
Again, there's a lot of moving parts to this.
Yes.
And they've been moving for about 3 years. No, more than that, 5 years. And I understood the only reason we needed the pumping station was to service this new development. And if we were going to put a new pumping station in, then we were also going to do the residents that ran along the road. That the leisure homes have their own pumping station, and they're pumping to the lagoon now. So I'm just, like, I know what I think I know what you're saying is that even though we may not be spending it, we have to put it in the budget to say that this is where the money's going to come from. But I'm a bit concerned when the public is reading this, that they're going to think that, okay, the developer's not picking up any of this, and that it's all going to be on the tax, and that the leisure homes pumping station, are they still going to have their pumping station? Are they not going to have their pumping station? Are we going to have another pumping station? Like within, what?
Mr. Frost, anything additional?
Yeah, through the chair. The leisure homes are in agreement with the town for private servicing. They are in the urban boundary, and upon provision of municipal servicing, any parties fronting that are required to connect to that service. The Black Creek Leisure Homes pump station will be decommissioned, their force main decommissioned, and they will be required by the Municipal Act to connect to our services.
And I do understand all that. To be perfectly honest, I actually do understand that because we've had that discussion before. So there's not going to be any legal challenges? The leisure homes is not going to take us to court over this? Or we don't really know, but there's a strong possibility that's the direction they're going to go in.
Through you, Chair, the Municipal Act would apply, and we have every right to have them to connect.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Mr. Jansen will continue. Road resurfacing. Good. Bridge culvert repair. On which, the bridge and culvert repair?
Yes, on the bridge. Are any of these that we're replacing, and I'm not anti, this is fine, but are any of these part of the drainage acts that we have done? Because I know some of them have, if it's either this one or another one coming up, are they part of the already drainage acts that we've had, or this is above and beyond with the drainage?
Welcome back, Mr. Frost. Go ahead.
Through your chair. While some are through the Drainage Act with municipal drains, I can speak to this one specifically is not. This is a state of good repair that we've identified in our biannual inspections of the structures. So this would be fully funded by the taxpayers, and the Drainage Act would not apply for funding and cost sharing on this one.
If I can continue, while you're up there, so the next one, which is bridge and culvert replacement, saving you some time, some of those may be part of the Drainage Act that we've already, I wouldn't say we paid for it, but we've already recognized in the drainage report.
Mr. Frost?
Through you, Chair. That is a possibility without specifically knowing the structures. I know we note them here, but off the top of my head, I can't speak to specifically if they are in the Drainage Act, but I know that we have a past practice depending on the cost apportionment. If the structure is a town structure and is there for the purposes of the town, we would be a contributing party to that cost share of the drainage works, and that's why you would see some of these structures funded by our reserves and not directly by those attributed to the drainage catchment.
Thank you.
Perfect. Anything else? All right, sidewalk repair. We'll move on. Walking web. River Trail Storm Outlet Improvement. Oh, sorry, thank you.
Okay, this is the one with Baker Road. Again, just trying to connect the dots here. I know it has to be done, but that is also where there is a window to the water, which is also considered a park. I'm hoping that we're going to be looking at that as we're doing this, that we're not going to be putting in a path and a bench and everything else that's then going to have to be torn out.
Through you, Chair, we are looking at, through the design, which we're getting ready to issue the request for proposals soon in the coming weeks, that the design will take into account the waterfront windows. It will look at a few options of if we can re-ditch and divert the flows elsewhere if topography permits. Otherwise, it would be looking at a new outlet in that place, and we would give the proper due diligence and collaboration with those involved in the waterfront windows.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Town Line Road sewer servicing, Your Worship.
Yeah, so maybe Mr. Frost can come back up. So according to this, we build the pumping station. We then transfer the pumping station to the region. It seems to me that, and you can maybe confirm this or not, but it seems to me that a pumping station is a pumping station is a pumping station. Some might have larger capacity than others, but they're like McDonald's or they're like Tim Hortons, or they should all be a standard design. I see that there's a significant sum of money for engineering here. What component of engineering goes to design?
Mr. Frost?
Through you, Chair. Pumping stations, while in principle they're all receiving a flow and they're pumping it somewhere, yes, there are pumps. A lot of the design goes into the size of the pumps, the number of pumps. There's what's called a wet well, which is basically the bottom where all the sewage comes into. The topography of the land dictates how deep that wet well is. There is how frequently you want that pump to run. Is it running 24 hours a day? Is it running 8 hours a day? The actual structure the pump station goes in can sometimes be impacted by the ground conditions. Certain soils have different materials in them that can eat away at different materials. If there is a structure associated with that pump station, odor control potentially, depending on the magnitude of flows. So there's a lot of elements that goes into pump station design, which is where some of this cost comes in from.
In terms of the exterior of the pumping station, if I might share, since this is going to be going to the region, does the region provide us with what the exterior design will look like?
Through you, Chair, we will obviously consult with the region. However, our intention is not to build the prettiest pump station. It's to build a pump station that serves a utility. Of this magnitude, it may be an underground pump station accessed through a chamber, as opposed to having a large structure. Well, those are things that we will have to look at based on the site selection for the pump station, as well as the size of the wet wells and the number of pumps needed. So we will work with the region on that because they do have a lot more experience and expertise in the design, construction, and implementation of pump stations. But we will definitely keep a cost-conscientious perspective in mind when going forward with this.
Good enough to reiterate that a pumping station is a pumping station. They can look the same from the outside no matter where they are. Thank you.
Noted.
Councillor Noyes?
Thank you. This goes back to my earlier questions on the Town Line Road sewer servicing. And it's one of these questions of the chicken which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Why, okay, McDonald's, I'm gonna call it McDonald's so we know what we're talking about. The chicken had the egg. My understanding, okay, McDonald's is not going to be putting in a lot of money for an infiltration system. And I understand it's not a cheap process for them. If it's going to be decommissioned in 2 years or 3 years. So I'm really wondering why, should we not be waiting for them to do their thing and then kind of be looking at this? Because it may be 10, 15 years before their private infiltration system is going to be looking at joining into this. So I'm not sure why we're doing this now when they're going to be doing their thing to take care of their property and their waste.
Mr. Frost?
Through you, Chair. development occurs at the pace in which development would like to occur, which their financiers have the money for, et cetera. So at the speed in which they develop, we look to promote that to allow them to move forward. Through the provincial policy statements, through our new official plan, we have language in there that allows the temporary servicing of a property within the municipal boundary, urban boundary, through private on-site measures. We don't allow this to be a permanent long-term solution that we're allowing McDonald's to proceed at this point in time. So we have initiated the servicing strategy before the McDonald's was in play, and started to look at what does servicing in this area look like to open up these lands for commercial development. It is in the urban boundary, having on-site private servicing, much like in the Sims Avenue. It's through the Municipal Act, something that we look to service with our infrastructure. The other developments in the area won't be able to go forward under McDonald's, their proposed treatment. So we're looking at providing something that's long-term, has cost recovery, we amortize, we get people on the system, and quite frankly, look to service the area the way it should be done, as opposed to a stopgap solution that allows development to occur now, as opposed to having them wait the 3 to 5 years timeframe.
Thank you for that explanation, and again, I think this is somewhat premature because we don't know what McDonald's, their investment's going to be, and I think it's going to be significant in regards to them taking care of their own wastewater, and they're not going to want to turn that off and say, okay, now you got to come. I know they have to once we do it. That's not the question, but again, I can remember the different option A, option B, option 3, that and the owner was there, not McDonald's owner was there, but so was the person who owns that urban area that you're talking about. And he basically was saying, no way am I going to, I've got this legal opinion that I'm supposed to be hooking up to the leisure homes, and we can go and use their pumping station. So it's really a bit of a kerfuffle that it's not as black and white as I'm sorry, that you make it sound like, because there's a lot of moving parts to this and a lot of disagreements, and I'm just worried who's going to finally pay for it. I know you're saying we have to cover the costs in our budget, but I'm just wondering if we're premature because we don't know. This isn't going to happen for at least 5 to 10 years. So
Okay.
I don't know why we're doing it this year.
So the question, Mr. Frass, why are we doing it this year?
Through you, Chair, we are looking at the funding this year for the design. The environmental class assessment is looking to wrap up in the coming months. A report will be brought to council with the preferred alternative solution that will hopefully be approved by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, Parks. We're seeking money to go through the design process, which will refine where things are, what size they are, what the true cost is, and then proceed through the cost apportionment exercise of how this will be funded and lock that in. This isn't to approve the construction funds, but ideally we are still looking to construct this in the 2027 timeframe to get servicing online. There has been a lot of discussion, I will say, with the landowners in the area. We talked about the McDonald's. We have been a very strong advocate and partner with them to find an interim servicing solution, proposing some unique systems that allow them to move forward in advance. If town staff through the planning department, the building department, the engineering and infrastructure services department were not fostering that, we would see a holdup of development significantly. So this is us doing our diligence to service these lands the way they should be serviced based on the Municipal Act and past practice, regardless of how development is being permitted or working to permit that development in the area to operate.
Great. Anything further? Okay, we'll continue. Same thing, only different, town line road servicing of sewer. Trenchless repairs. Stevensville Road water main. Water main, water meter replacement program. Centennial Library asbestos abatement. Crystal Ridge Community Center door replacement. Training tower roof recovery. Building sealant replacement here at Town Hall in the Leisureplex. New kitchen for the banquet hall. I'm sorry, new oven for the kitchen at the banquet hall. Good. Generator at Station 5. Bunker gear, which one? Generator? Generator, go.
So I know there've been some discussions about transfer switches, and I presume there'd need to be one put in at Station 5, or is there already one there? Okay. And then there was some discussion about a transfer switch being installed in another facility in
Crystal Ridge,
Crystal
I think.
Ridge.
Yep.
I didn't see that in here, is it? Did I miss it, or is it just not here in the package?
Mr. Pizzo, who's going to jump on that?
I may refer this back to Mr. Jansen, however,
Sure.
but I thought there was a capital project under facilities separate from fire for the transfer switches.
So part of our update in the capital variance report we just did a month ago was to say that the transfer switch projects for 2 locations are still active and expected to move forward. I know there's been discussion with the group at the Crystal Ridge Community Center to make sure that that the project aligns and that we're clear on what we're aiming to provide there. It is different than I think the request they had for a more permanent generator at that site, but Town has been in discussion with them, and I think, I'm not sure on the latest updates of that, but I think there's some alignment with moving forward with what the plan we had.
So having said all that, that's covered? The cost of
Yes.
the transfer switch is covered?
That's right.
Good. Bunker gear, space updates, good. Leisureplex BAS system, which is building automation. Leisureplex dehumidifier upgrade. Fence replacement at Bill Connolly. Crystal Ridge Park washroom. Yep, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Just one question to staff on the build. Is that utilizing the existing infrastructure within the Crystal Ridge Arena? And I'll use the example, I believe there's 4 change rooms along that one wall. Are they tying in and using some of that for efficiency, or are we even looking at, do we need 4 change rooms at that facility to allow for washrooms for the park? Or is there a way to make it a combination of both, inside, outside access type of thing?
I'd refer that to infrastructure services.
Through the chair to you, Councillor, I'm not really too familiar with this project at the moment. I can follow up with you at a later date, but we will take any recommendations.
I see the CAO as well.
Through the chair, just to clarify, so this was a project that I believe is a temporary building, like a seasonal building, somewhat portable. We've put a grant application in for the cost of this. It would be more of an enhanced type of building, but portable nonetheless. So it's not tied into the permanent building. So this would be something a bit more upfitted. The grant application, if it's not successful, we'd be looking at using the balance. We'd come back with a capital budget variance. If we're not successful with the grant application, we'd be coming back with a more portable facility that you might have seen, I believe in Ridgeway, would be a lower cost point installation. So this one would be somewhat enhanced above that type of facility that's in Ridgeway.
Got it. Councillor Lewis?
Yeah, no, just briefly, and I very much support this. I know it's something that I've been asked, I'm sure Councillor Christensen as well, in terms of the need. But when I walked through the park with someone who was talking about some of the issues with the park, washrooms being one of them, one of the thoughts were, do we need all of the change rooms in the existing arena, or is there some way that maybe one of those or change rooms or an add-on could be done to have some efficiencies?
Yeah,
Those
Your
were
Worship.
just my comment.
Well, you need change rooms because there's always two teams on the ice if there are games, and there are always two teams coming in or two teams leaving, so you'd need at least 4. But I just wanted to say that there might be some other opportunities as well for some collaboration with other organizations to do something at that facility. So it sounds like it's still a work in progress, depending upon a number of things.
Yeah, and just, if I
Sure.
may, I do agree, but I do know that not always are those change rooms always being used, and not everyone that plays hockey changes at the change room. So I think years ago it was a different, little bit different, but maybe not quite so much the same now.
We may also be talking about different seasons as well, so outside washroom facilities in the winter, probably not what we're talking about here. Okay, Crystal Ridge, temporary washroom, Grove Park. Okay. Yes, on the Grove Park?
Thank you. That one shows maintenance, if I remember correctly, being around 76,000.
100.
Oh, did I read that wrong? Okay, 7,600. Okay, that answers that question, because that was a lot of toilet
Yeah,
paper.
glad we could help. All right. Bleacher replacement. Good. Parking lot, Birdie Centennial. Yes, Councillor Noyes.
Again, I'm just wondering, since we have it's a resurfacing of the parking lot, why do we need $10,000 for consultants?
Mr. Frost is on his way. Mr. Jansen?
Through you, Chair. What we found with some of our parking lots in recent experience is that it's mostly been asphalt or stone placed on inadequate subsurface. The $10,000 would likely go to a geotechnical consultant who would take boreholes and samples, classify the subsurface, and then propose a suitable granular and or composite or asphalt surface that won't simply rut, pothole, and sink the moment we start parking vehicles on it.
Thank you, that makes sense.
Okay, good. All right. Park waste receptacle replacement. Yeah, I'm glad somebody's going to talk on this because I was going to, if not. So go ahead.
Well, this is probably year, 5, 10? I don't know. We still have a barrel at the Douglas Park, AC Douglas Park. It was there when we had the opening of the park. I'm hoping that that barrel is one of the ones of the 77 that's going to be replaced. I was told 3 years ago it was going to be replaced. The barrel is still there. So, is there anything else I should be saying?
Well, I don't know. They're $3,500 for each one. That seems pretty steep to me.
Last time,
Just looking at cost of garbage cans at $3,500 just jumped out. Councillor Christensen.
Having done a grant a number of years ago, at which point they were $2,200 per, and that was pre-COVID. I'm not shocked. It is what it is.
Councillor Noyes.
if I can ask the staff to get back to it, because we've been replacing these, none of them that I can recall were 3,500, unless they're now put in gold or something. There were a few last year, the year before, I brought it up a number of times, they were around 1,100 to 1,200. And I thought that price was exorbitant. I don't ever recall $3,500 per race. And I'm talking about the ones that we currently have, unless we're going big and quite different than what we currently have when we're replacing them. There's no way they're $3,500. I can Google it.
Mr. CEO?
Through you to council, we have used that figure of $3,500. It seems to be the market rate or approximately the market rate. I think they're the type of receptacles that we need. If you can imagine them being placed on roadsides with, being exposed to road salt and everything splashing up off the road, the version of receptacles we're talking about here, while some may end up in parks, they would be primarily streetscape type of receptacles that do require a higher level of durability. They have much longer shelf life is our intention. They'd be metal and powder coated metals, so they'd be more resilient to some of the elements they're going to be exposed to. And they're 3 container garbage receptacles, so they do provide some future option for organics collection, which our current garbage receptacles now don't accommodate, or their individual barrels. What we'd likely do is take some of our streetscape receptacles and start using those to replace some of the barrels that Councillor Noyes is referring to try and cycle them out and reserve them just for special occasions, because they're maybe not the types of receptacles that picture well. So that would be the strategy moving forward.
Perfect. Councillor Noyes?
Just want to, it says park waste receptacles. It doesn't say the receptacles on streets and on street corners. And I'm all for this. I mean, particularly for the recycling part of it. But I'm sure that's not what we've been paying for in the past. But it does seem like we're going bigger and better and different than what we have done in the past. But again, it does say park.
That's what I'm hearing too. Okay. Roads loader. Wastewater service van. Sewer flusher. Is that where we're at?
Last one, yeah.
Hey, not bad. All right. Anything else to Mr. Jansen? Yep. So if nothing, we will look for someone to move the report. Your Worship, thank you. Any discussion on the recommendation in the report? Councillor Noyes.
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment to the report.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know if I do this as a motion. I have moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lewis that the capital project DGT S26 Douglastown spray pad as identified in Appendix 3 of the report CBC-01-2026 be included as part of the 2026 capital budget.
Thank you. So that amendment is on the floor for discussion. Councillor Noyes?
Again, this is a splash pad in Douglastown, and we do have the room for it. I would imagine it'll go into the park that we currently have. So it's not like we're going to be using town property that we already obtained. This is a growing municipality. It's had a lot of new growth in the last 10 years. There's a lot of young kids, and this is the only park in town that you cannot walk to or bike ride to a splash pad, unless you want the kids to go down Netherby Road, which I don't think anybody here would recommend, that they walk or they bicycle down Netherby Road on their own, or even with their parents. So it definitely is needed. This has been brought up the last few years. Last year when I tried it, I was told this year, hopefully I would be successful next year, which is this year. And I do understand that it is an expense, but I do think it's something that they've needed, they should have, and there's a lot of children, there's a lot of new growth here. So I'm going to hear what the other councillors have to say on this.
Thank you, Councillor Noyes. Councillor Christensen.
Thank you, Chair. I've spoken with Councillor Noyes, and I do want to say that I understand the concept of the idea of population standards for a variety of facilities that the town offers. I also, having grown up in a very, very small town, understand as well that sometimes you need certain features that, according to standards, might require a larger population. I will say, so I did, in discussions with Councillor Noyes, support a water feature. I will be honest, the amount of funding that has been allocated to this as a full splash pad is concerning for me, but I do understand the need for a water feature of perhaps, I was thinking much more modestly. Councillor Noyes may disagree with me, but I do understand that in a hot summer, it's really, it's a piece, and kids don't necessarily need all the bells and whistles. They just want to get wet. So I want to just put that out as my comment, and both support for the idea of water, question about the complexity and sophistication.
Thank you, Councillor. Your Worship.
Just a few questions, and let me start by saying that I appreciate that Douglastown is out of the way. I appreciate that. I got a few questions though of staff, and I want to start with, we just went through an exercise where various projects, quite a few projects, were closed. What was the purpose of that exercise?
The recent report on November 3rd was the annual capital closeout report. Yeah, where projects are either completed or deemed to not be in a state where they're recommended to proceed, that we close those and return the related amounts to the reserves. Was there a specific item in there you wanted information on?
No, my understanding is part of it is as well, that there's been a reduced number of projects going forward this year because staff is trying to make sure that when they put a project on a list and try to assign a cost to it, that's a cost that will stand up because the project is going to be done within a timeline that isn't going to have an impact on costs going down the road.
That's correct. I mean, there are times when we have staffing turnovers and other changes in departments or additions of master plans where, the program may change, but yeah, the recent discussions are to refocus efforts on reducing some of the longer term work in progress for approved capital projects and keep those accountable to council.
If this project is added to the project list, does that mean that we'll just have one additional project, or would there be a project that staff would recommend come out?
Yeah, we demonstrated earlier, particularly with the Parkland Reserve, which this project is subject to funding from. There is a gap in that over the forecasted term, and it's subject to external contributions, which we try to forecast as best we can, but it's still showing to be very problematic over the forecasted term. So in this type of situation, we would be looking in the forecast period in particular, but also in the current year to see what options we might have to prioritize this over other projects.
So that's something that hasn't been done because this hasn't been added to the budget yet.
Planning, PBBS can comment if there's an identified one that may, in terms of priority, be deferred for any particular reason. But that is we're in a new environment with the way capital programs get amended potentially on this night. But that is something we would look to them to see if there are projects that could then be substituted for this.
And also, if this is constructed and added to if it's added to the budget constructed next year, that's an additional sum of money that has to be taken into account in terms of operating impacts.
That's right. If we were adding this, we shared earlier that the operating impacts for the proposed program was $220,000. In this case, we'd be adding on the second page here an additional $67,459. So that would mean we would have it that much greater impact to our levy budget, which would then total $287,000.
And my understanding, there's some, in connection with a water feature, you have to have water. So there's some issue with respect to where the water lines are, and that would be part of the reason for the cost that's shown in the budget.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the details of the design and to what extent that design has been contemplated for this location. PBBS staff would be better equipped to handle that, but the water cost itself has been reflected in the operating impacts.
So all the costs would be included in here.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Councillor Noyes?
Yes, Jonathan, thank you for that explanation, but there's money, there's other sources beside the Parkland Reserve if we choose to use it. Yes? Like there's development charges.
Through the chair to the councillor, in this case, it's not a development charge program project. Yes, there are other sources. Of course, we've talked about the gaps in many other categories. So no, this program is almost exclusively funded by Parkland Reserves.
But it could be funded through other methods, like through the...
Yes.
Yeah. And what would those other areas be?
Any of our categories have a dedicated capital reserve, so that could be from any of those areas.
And considering that you're saying that it can't be from development charges, there's been a lot of development. And that's one of the reasons that we need the splash pad. Why can't we use, I'm sure we collected development charges from all those new homes. Why would that not be usable?
There is potential at times for a substitution of programs, but in this case, we've, in principle, we try to keep our funding for these types of projects, to the extent that we're looking at financial strategies that have dependable, consistent funding and needs over long-term life cycle replacements. We prefer to look at those more as contained needs that we can report to council on, but yeah, council may choose to use a different reserve to fund that.
Thank you for that. And just commenting on Councillor Christensen's comment about a water feature. I don't think, at least in my mind, I'm not looking for a huge, ginormous water park. I'm looking for something more like Stevensville, which is quite much smaller, considerably smaller, almost uncomparable to what we're probably getting at Ferndale when that happens, or what we have now at Sugar Bowl. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for a few little features, a splash pad like Councillor Christensen can, that the kids can get wet and maybe have some fun at. Like if you're familiar with Stevensville, it's quite small. I don't know what it costed, but what it cost then and what it costs now is quite different. So again, the $720,000, I don't know whether they're using that. I think that's kind of what Ferndale Park was going to be, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not seeing anybody saying yes or no. I'm just trying to remember last year with that, I think that's what we were thinking for Ferndale.
I think we've got an answer here.
Through the chair to Councillor Noyes. So the budget for Ferndale, the facilities at Ferndale already includes the piping. There's already washroom facilities there. So the budget for this would be not for features exactly as a spray pad, it would be for jets. So this budget was based off of the design that was recently built over at Douglas, where it's just out of the ground. And then we would have to build a maintenance room. And then with the current facilities, we would anticipate there needing to be at least one washroom for the park because there is no currently any washroom or publicly owned building like arena or library that is within close vicinity. So that is what the budget is taking into consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Noyes?
Thank you. I'm going to challenge a lot of those things that you're saying. Douglas Park, which has a water feature, does not have a bathroom. The Ridgeway water feature on Ridge Road does not have a bathroom at this point, unless it's a temporary one. And by the way, Douglas Park does have a bathroom. It has the one of those portable ones. And it does have one, or it has had one, unless it's been removed, during the winter months or whatever. And the other thing too, in regard to Ferndale Park, and I can remember this quite clearly, is that the reason that we approved Ferndale Park before its time, and I'm all for Ferndale Park, not against it, is that it was actually going to be moved. It wasn't going to be in the same footprint that it was currently in. It was going to be moved. So I would think then the piping and some of those other things would have to also be moved. And I'm not quite sure, when I'm looking at Stevensville Park, the one in Stevensville Memorial Park, I'm not, is there all those things that you said that a splash pad needs there?
So just to clarify, I think you have a couple of things to be addressed. So Douglas Park has 2 permanent washrooms. The one over at Douglas Park, so this is across from the hospital. The one over at Ridgeway, there is a portable washroom. And when it comes to your concerns for, I believe, Stevensville Memorial Park, so the facilities for that is included within the building, the memorial building. So there's the washrooms there, and I believe that's where all of the facilities and all of the maintenance operate out of. Thank you.
There is a bathroom it's on Stevensville Hall, Memorial Hall, and it's quite tiny. And it's really not terribly functional, and it was closed for years. It has been opened a few years ago. But anyway, I can appreciate it, but again, there is a portable bathroom. There is water going around the circle there, because there's houses and they have water. But anyway, I'm just still hoping, I'm hoping that we get the report, we get the funding for this, because they've waited long enough and they cannot walk. They have really, they need it. There's a lot of kids there, they need it. And they've needed it for years.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of comments and then a question to Councillor Noyes. I took a drive through this area tonight on the way back from something in Niagara Falls, and was out there about 3 years ago, prior to being, maybe a little bit longer, prior to being on council, and I was quite surprised, having not regularly traveled through that portion of the community, to see how much growth is there, as well as how much anticipated growth is also coming. Whether it's a splash pad, a water feature, whatever we want to call it, I do agree with Councillor Noyes that there is a need for it, and unfortunately wasn't at the opening when that park was largely attended by a number of residents who I think also got the impression from us that we were kind of moving forward with that. The other is, in October, I think it was October, you put forward a motion that this council supported unanimously, giving another nod that this was kind of the direction we were going in, or at least appeared to be going towards. That being said, what I'm hearing here is your, Councillor Noyes, agreeing to maybe some tweaking to the plan so that it's not like necessarily some of the others that have been referenced. We don't have a cost right now on what that would be, or maybe we do. Maybe staff does know what a modified, softer version of a water pad would be, but is that something that we could maybe get some clarity from staff on if we were looking to go at, you know, from driving a BMW down to maybe a Ford Topaz for a water feature? What would that cost, or what could we be looking at in terms of some savings?
Answer coming behind you there, Mr. Jansen.
Through the chair to Councillor Lewis. So the costs that we use for this were based off of our most recent spray pads that we have developed, based off of the costing for concrete, facilities and utility lines, permits, and everything like that. And we've had a couple of recent spray pads developed, such as the one over at Douglas, which is the primary base point that we use from, as it has very modest features compared to Sugar Bowl. However, understanding that Sugar Bowl, we also had to provide facilities such as new piping and everything like that. So we took an educated estimate based off of both of them, and then costs based off of scale, basically, from the two that we have recently done in the past 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess, Councillor Noyes, with your amendment that's on the floor, what are your thoughts in terms of getting more information on this from staff in terms of exactly what we're looking for? Like, we've been given the high end, but we really don't know the low end on where this could come out in terms of project costs.
No, and I can appreciate that I don't anticipate it's going to cost $720,000, but I'm not an expert on this. But again, if they're taking Douglas Park and they're taking Sugar Bowl Park as examples that they kind of match the two, I don't think we're thinking Stevensville Park, like the small little Stevensville splash pad. That's what we're thinking, which is considerably different than that. And again, I have to question. I know it's there, and I supported it at that time, and I still support that we have a water feature at Douglas Park, and then less than I would say probably a 10-minute walk, we have Sugar Bowl Park. So it's like, where was all this thought going when we had two? But again, yes, I would like to see a splash pad. It can be less than what, obviously, has to be less than what Sugar Bowl, and not even comparable to Sugar Bowl, and probably less than what Ferndale has.
Councillor Lewis?
So is this something that could go back to staff for more information in terms of actual costs? And come back so we're making a decision based on where we know we're going?
Yes, I'm fine with that, but I don't know how that works if we have to approve the capital budget and this is not in there.
Well, it doesn't get a final approval until later, although the staff would like to be able to move forward with what does get approved now.
Yeah, that's a bit of new territory where I think if we were to move forward with the deemed adoption tonight with the proposed total project program, we could bring back additional information at our next budget meeting, December 3rd. In that case, I think, this qualifies as an amendment that, again, council and mayor could waive the timing of such so that it could go forward and get approved that night as well. I'm not sure if staff would need more time, however, that is coming up within just 2-3 short weeks, so I would look to them to see if they would like more time. Could come forward again as well in January would be our final budget date.
I'm looking for an idea, December, January.
My apologies, through the chair. December, January, is that including the time that it would take for the report? Because we have to finish our findings usually about 3 weeks ahead or 2 weeks ahead. So is that for like the council meeting in January?
3 weeks.
No, I think
December 3rd or January 28th.
January 28th would be more doable.
we're not really surprised, but thank you. All right. So Councillor Noyes, can you live with the January 28th that we're going to bring, that we will ask staff to bring something back so that we can look at different costs and we can consider this amendment at that point?
Yeah, actually, what I was going to suggest, which I think is more on the same line, is that that I'll defer this until January 28th for the purpose of getting more information.
Yeah, that's basically what we've said. So everyone's good with that time only. Yeah.
I just wanted to say I had the floor, but I'm done.
Oh, be like that. Okay, be like that. All right. So let's vote on the deferral of the amendment. All those in favor? Opposition? None. Good. Brings us back to the main motion then, that the 2026 capital budget of $23,795,300 be approved as presented. All those in favor? Oh, questions on that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Go. Yep. Your worship.
So I know that at one point there was some discussion about financing with respect to refurbishing the caboose in the Sugar Bowl, which is part of the train thing. I know there was $30,000 that has been referenced. It might have even been in the minutes of the last Heritage Committee meeting, or it might have been in some minutes someplace. That $30,000, was that in a previous budget, or is it not anywhere going forward?
Mr. Jansen?
Excuse me, through you, Chair. That was contemplated earlier. It was not considered to meet our thresholds for capital program. It was removed. Yeah, due to the amount and the nature of not necessarily extending the life. It's painting, I believe, primarily. But staff will be in discussions as to what that may look like in terms of accommodating that with any operating budget. I'm not sure that there is a plan right now. Community Services, I think, is having some of those conversations to know how appropriate that might be.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, anyone else? Good, okay, so seeing none, I'll assume everyone's ready to vote. All those in favor? Opposition? That carries. All right, so we'll close this part and bring it back to you, Your Worship.
Okay, thanks very much. So the schedule of meetings, December the 3rd, water and wastewater operating budget and user fee analysis, by which time we should have some information from the region. That could be ugly. January the 28th, Fort Erie Public Library assessment analysis, general levy operating budget. How come we leave that so late? Why do we leave that until the end of January?
That is in keeping with our regular schedule. Yeah, we do balance some of the pros and cons. We have discussions with staff in terms of the annual workflows, and it is balancing having enough annual operating information completed and submitted at the end of the year so as to better come up with estimates and forecasts for the next year. We have considered bringing that back earlier into December. We've considered alternatives as well where we potentially bring all of the budgets forward in one consolidated package. We do find this helps us to spread out some of the needs and events and considerations for the budget. But if council were to wish to have that advanced or changed, we would absolutely accommodate that.
Okay. And Wednesday, February 4th, if we need it. That being all of the business, motion to adjourn. Councillor Lewis? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Scheduling of meetings, we're on scheduling of meetings.
No, actually, I had another comment before the schedule of meetings.
Before what?
Before the schedule of meetings, just a
Well,
point.
once we vote on the report, we're done
Okay.
with the report.
I'm just going to get these 2 cents out there. I just looked up that exact garbage can. It's $939, the one that they're propane. Just letting you know.
Okay. Okay. Motion to adjourn, Councillor Lewis. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Good job, Councillor Flagg.